What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to TTP Sports, and I want to talk some 76ers basketball for once. And with this channel, it's going to be my fault regardless, but I feel like my knowledge on the sport of basketball isn't where I want it to be. To be constantly talking about it on YouTube, going over it, dissecting the games, and just giving my general opinion on facts, on the news, and whatsoever. And I feel like going into this resumption of the NBA season, the Sixers season, getting able to watch these games, getting excited, getting pumped to watch these games, and then going into the playoffs, I feel like that's going to be more beneficial. And I feel like I'll be able to get my knowledge there and be able to talk about it, which we're going to do right now. So just going into the resumption of the Sixers season, and the way I feel like they're going to treat this, Brett Brown and all that stuff, I feel like it's definitely just going to be treated as exhibition games. They're going to be treated as ways to get the chemistry back with the team, like who's going to be logging these type of minutes, like how to get your bench players, how to get their roles intact. And then once you get into closer to the playoffs starting, and then you'll start seeing those guys start to log more minutes, start to see how a traditional playoff setup is going to be and how your starting lineup is going to shape out going into the playoffs. So with the more things discussed about the Sixers in the past few days, specifically regarding to Brett Brown, talking about Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons. So he was talking about Joel Embiid and saying that he is in the best shape of his life that he has seen Brett Brown. And it's just like, okay, I didn't expect you to say that, but I feel like that's kind of the same story that we hear every single season. And like, it's definitely nice to hear. It's definitely nice to hear that Joel Embiid is working hard in the gym, that he's getting into the best shape of his life. But it's just like, I don't know how I feel about that. It's like, the thing with Joel Embiid is, I need to see it in order to believe it. Because I feel like that's sort of been somewhat of the same story with him, that he needs to get into better shape. He needs to do this because every time you see him on the court, the first half of the game, he is dominating, he is lighting up the lamp. And then once you get into that second half, he's starting to put his hands on his knees, he's starting to huff and puff, get tired, you see the sweat drenching from him. And it's just, he gets so exhausted. And just with the natural ability of Joel Embiid, like his body size, his figure is just that I feel like there's no possible way for him to be in quote-unquote perfect shape just because of how big the guy is. He's logging a ton of minutes, he's always crashing into the paint, being under the net, and he's being a pain. He's being a pest down there, and he's being a pain. And it's just, playing like that consistently, you're going to get tired eventually during a game. And I feel like definitely being in the best shape possible, it's going to help him out, maybe make him feel less tired, and definitely do all that stuff. But there's definitely going to be those situations where he's hands on his knees, he's huffing and puffing. But it's just that I need to see it in order to believe it with Joel Embiid. And do I believe that he can do that? Yes, because I love the guy to death. I believe that he can do it 100%. But it's just, I need to see it in action before I start believing it. And then not with Ben Simmons, we'll get to Ben Simmons, what Brett Brown said about him. So we all know the whole situation with Ben Simmons with the back injury, and just a couple weeks ago, Brett Brown was talking about he's not going to be 100% coming back into the resumption of the season and all that. And then just a couple days ago, he's talking about Ben Simmons is 100%. He's going to come back. He's going to muck and grind. He's going to be he's going to play his best game possible out there. I was just like, what? You were just talking about that a couple weeks ago. He's not going to be 100%. And I would assume you have the knowledge that to know that Ben Simmons is going to be 100%. And is that great news? Yes, that is definitely great news. But it's just like, the one thing that scares me of the whole thing, saying that he's 100%, he was dealing with a back injury the entire time. And back injuries, they just don't go away. They stick with you probably for the rest of your life. And I don't want to compare like people I know personally to the NBA because they are not NBA players. A lot of people I know, they have back injuries. Well, not back injuries, they have back problems. And it just doesn't go away from them. It just sticks with them and their back is in constant pain. Not saying that's going to happen to Ben Simmons, but maybe there's somewhere down the line, maybe in a couple seasons, maybe those back problems start to act up again. Who knows, maybe if he comes back, maybe those back problems start to act up a little bit again. It's just that back injuries are the one thing that scares me a little bit the most, because they're just they're just that problem that doesn't seem to go away. But I'm trusting in Brett Brown to saying that Ben Simmons is 100% and that he's going to come back and he's going to muck and grind. So I want to believe it. I really do. But it's sort of the same thing with Joel Embiid. I just need to see it in order to believe it, that he is 100%, that he can go out there and be Ben Simmons. And then there's going to be another storyline going into this. Is Ben Simmons going to adapt his game? Is he going to play the good half-court game? And it's just that it's been the same storyline with Ben Simmons year after year after year, that he's mucking and grinding in the gym. He's getting those. He's working on his jump shot. He's going to adapt that into the season here, little bits in there, and it just doesn't happen. This has really been the only season where he's actually attempted to make some jumpers, and yes, he has made some, but like this is really the only season we have seen that happen. And like I said, it's been the same storyline year after year, that he's working on this jump shot. And when is going to be that point where he fully adapts that into his game? When is he going to adjust? When is he going to develop into that to where he could be the superstar that we all know he is? Because right now he definitely is a superstar, but if he added that jump shot to his game, just add that space, add that separation to his game, he'd be a lot more better, and everyone knows that. And I feel like if that doesn't happen going into this playoffs, or even into these little bit of exhibition games, you're going to get those typical fans that, look, we got to trade Ben Simmons. You got to get him off the Sixers. Trade him for something. Just get him off. No. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen with Ben Simmons whatsoever. Am I going to be frustrated if he doesn't show some type of development with that going into this exhibition games and into the playoffs? Yes. Am I going to be very frustrated? Yes. Is it going to be disappointing? Yes. But it's just that I'm not going to sit here, demand a trade. The guy is still young. He still has that time to develop. He's only 23 years old. He's going to develop into that. It's just we need patience, sadly. And even though, sadly, this is a frustrating time, if we've been told the same story every single season, I guess it's just a matter of waiting for this point. But like, I can understand the frustration with people, but I wouldn't go as far as to say as trading him. And we all know Elton Brand's not going to want to do that. And then the whole situation right now, like, what's the starting lineup going to shape out to be? Like, who's going to log the most minutes? What's the starting rotation going to look like? Is Tobias Harris, is he going to be that 20-point per game player that we all need him to be, and we're paying him to be because he's been very inconsistent the entire season? And that's where people come to where saying his contract, we're paying him so much, and he stinks. And it's just like, no, he's a 20-point per game player, and he can be that player. He just needs to be more consistent on the floor. And the one name that I really don't want to bring up, Al Horford. Ugh, that signing has come back to haunt the Sixers in every shape way. Ugh. It's just that Brett Brown has talked about you're going to be seeing both Joel Embiid and sometimes Al Horford on the floor at the same time. It's just that, what is Al Horford going to do? Is he going to show that one game where it's like, oh, this is the guy that we signed, or is he going to show the most of the time during the season where he just hasn't been good? It's just that I know a lot of people complain about a lot with Al Horford this year, where he would miss a constant open threes, and that is definitely a problem. That's definitely on Al Horford. But a lot of people would blame Brett Brown for that, because why is he in that position to begin with? But if you're Al Horford and you're shooting a wide open three from beyond the arc, you got to hit it. You got to drain it. It's simple as that. You got to hit it. But the whole situation going with Al Horford, what's going to happen with that? And then, like, is there going to be anyone off the bench that's going to be taking a step up? Is Shake Milton going to be taking a step? Furkan Korkmaz, oh god, I hate Furkan Korkmaz. Matisse Thybulle, what's going to happen with them? Because we all know in the playoffs, the bench roles, they don't play as many minutes as they would in the regular season. So, like, who is going to get that extra step? Who's Brett Brown going to give those extra little bits of minutes to for guys off the bench? And we all know the way he was talking about with Shake Milton, the way he was playing before the season got into that stoppage. Is he going to utilize Shake Milton more? Because I know he's definitely going to get some minutes for Korkmaz. Sadly, everyone has that little feeling of hate for him. He does separate the floor a little bit because he can shoot from beyond the arc. And with Matisse Thybulle, his elite defensive game, it's just how is Brett Brown going to utilize some of those bench players to be used properly going into these exhibition games, and then once you get into the playoffs? And then when talking about matchup for the 76ers going into the playoffs, I think it's the Boston Celtics, the Pacers, and the Miami Heat. And I feel like with this Sixers team, I feel like we match up with Boston pretty well. We've played well against them this season. I'm very confident going into those series. With the Miami Heat, I know we've struggled much against them, but who knows what Miami could be with Jimmy Butler going into the playoffs. Can they be really good? Or are they going to be one of those teams that's kind of a fraud going into the playoffs? With the Indiana Pacers, I'm confident the Sixers can beat the Indiana Pacers. So I'm not really too worried about going into the first round of the playoffs. It's more getting into deeper of the rounds of the playoffs is where I start to question the Sixers a little bit. And then we all know, even on the terms of positive news at once, Brett Brown has stated that no Sixer has tested positive for COVID-19, which is a good thing. Maybe down the line you'll start seeing like some of those players get tested positive, and that's going to be where, how is Brett Brown going to utilize some of these players? Because what if someone goes down with COVID-19, they got to go into quarantine. They got to go into that 14-day quarantine phase. Who is going to be the player that steps up and takes some of those minutes from a guy that possibly got taken away? Because if it's like a bench player, if it's a depth player, like no one's going to care about that. But if it's like an important role player, who is going to eat up those minutes to fill in for that guy? And that's the question going into this resumption of the season. And then, like, to finish this off, talk about Zaire Smith. He has a bone bruise. He's not going to travel with the Sixers to Orlando, to Disney World. And it's just, this kid can't catch a break, sadly. It's such a sad thing to talk about with Zaire Smith because he just can't catch a break. And I feel bad for the guy. But honestly, I don't know what I feel about Zaire Smith because he just really hasn't gotten that chance. And just, granted for him, he's just had a bunch of rotten luck with the injuries. So I know a lot of people saying that we wasted that trade during that time trading for Zaire Smith. So it's kind of looking like that just because he just finding so much rotten luck with these injuries. But it's sadly, that's what happens. He's not going to travel with the team, and he's not going to be able to play in the playoffs this year. So it's feel bad for the kid. You got to feel bad for him. So what are your thoughts, guys, going into the resumption of the regular season for the NBA? What are your thoughts for the Sixers? What do you think Brett Brown's going to do? Do you believe the Joel Embiid situation, Ben Simmons? And what do you think the team's going to shape out to looking like? So don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to drop a like. And I will see you in the next video.